Hello everybody and welcome back to another tech deep dive video, this time for the third US Armored division again. As since we had the look on this the last time, a lot has happened, and this is actually one of the world's versatile divisions to build. We're going into my standard deck. There's also a couple of other versions of this where, as you can see, I have a Bradley spam and a Hero spam deck as well of these, but this is the standard version, and yeah, let's have a look into how this exactly looks. But before we jump into all this, one quick shout out to the upcoming tournaments on play that we have in the Simulated Divisions League. And those are the 7th Friday Night WARNO, which will happen this Friday, and the 3rd of March. And then next Monday, the March WARNO Monthly will start. For everyone who watched this later, you can always go to playsdl.com and check out the upcoming events here, as we have 2 WARNO tournaments currently coming up, one Steel Division, one Nebulous tournament. And yep, the Friday Night WARNO chilled 2v2 tournament, where I will be joined by Derek S this time. And yeah, you can come in, try to challenge us and all the other players in there, and we will have some fun time with some 2v2 games. Really looking forward to that. Or, yeah, you can just, if you're here for 1v1s, go into the WARNO Monthly March. It will be a Swiss tournament, so nobody will get eliminated. You will get your 5 fun games of WARNO if you sign up. And they should also, especially the later week games, be relatively balanced, as you get opponents matched on your previous results. So if you get good results, then you will fight for the title in the end against other players who also had good results. And if it didn't go too well in the first couple of weeks, you will at least have some fair games against other players who were having some losses there, and everyone will get their 5 nice competitive games in a nice setting. So yeah, check this out, playsdl.com, link down below, and let's get back into the deck building. As we start in the logistics tab, where we go with quite a couple of logistics trucks. As you have the normal trucks that are normal 500 points, and then we have the Hammets for artillery in the rear. You could argue that you maybe could bring the Blackhawk as well, but the Blackhawk is actually less cost efficient than the trucks, and yeah, I don't like it for that reason. So, because it only has 1000 supply. If it would have 1500 and would cost you 60 or so, then it would be a good helicopter. But this way it's not really that great. So I'd rather take the M35s and then the Hamid, which is really cost efficient. So not card efficient, but that's okay. And then we take one CV, which is the M151. It's the only fast CV in the deck, so we go with this, so that we have some fast capping potential at the early game. And then the other CV will be in the tank tab, so that we have our minimum of 5 CVs. It's a bit low number. If you want to be on the safer side, you can get rid of one of the supply trucks for one of these CVs down here. I would recommend the M577. The Bradley is a bit too expensive. It would cost 155 points, or even 100, even less. Like, I would say this thing should cost 135 points. Then it would be better. As we go into the infantry tab, where you have a decent amount of variety. You have Bradley as transport for quite a good couple of units. Your Fire Team 84s and Laws can come in, and your Fire Team Dragons can come in Bradleys. Currently also your MGs can come in Bradleys. That's how we get this Bradley here. It's the cheapest way of getting a Bradley currently. If that ever changes, switch that out for another Fire Team. You want to have 2 cards of Bradleys. That's what we get here. Fire Team 84 with a Bradley and an MG gun with MG with a Bradley. MGs are decent, but the really good combination is that you can get them with a Bradley here as well, which is a fantastic beast. The TOW 2 gives it good stopping power against any kind of tank. The only issue of this is that it has relatively low armor or high cost IV, so it's really not supposed to push on its own. But if you have this accompanying infantry, accompanying tanks, it's a fantastic vehicle. The 84... Oh, Yeah, the 84 one also decent. And then engineers and engineered flashes for the CQC, which you really will need in this deck as the long range firepower is there. Military police still decent, not so great as great as they once had been, but they are cheap and cost efficient. Plus they have the military trait, which can help out with your other infantry. TOTU, still an absolutely fantastic ATGM. But if you want to be more cost efficient, the ITO does a decent job as well. So you potentially could switch that out. Or if you want to have some arrow rifles, like that's my agile card here. If I would have to play in the tournament with this TOTU can potentially go for arrow rifles, potentially can go for the ITO if the enemy doesn't have any heavy armor. But if I play against something like in ranked, if you want to have it so that if you play against something like 79th, you have this TOTU, as the TOTU is a fantastic missile there. Mech rifles, Dragon 2 still deals good damage. The infantry itself, since the buff to LMG is also decent again, it's pretty expensive, but it does have good stopping power. Card availability is a bit low, that's why we only... yeah. But it's still... The Dragon 2 is still a good weapon. I still would bring the one card that you still get in this deck for using there. Artillery-wise, it's all the M109s. M109s, even on the current patch where artillery is not fantastic, still decent artillery. With upcoming buffs, they should be fine again. The M270s are just a bit too expensive in a deck that already is really expensive. Plus, currently, they still fire a bit too slow. So that's why I would not take them. Even if they get buffed, I would argue in a 1v1 deck this is not worthwhile. If you want to play this in team games, you can bring them around. The mortars can be nice, but you're not really the deck that is in much need of extra smoke screens. And outside of that, mortars not doing fantastically either. But like, if they get a buff, maybe use the mortars here as well instead of one of the M109s. But two cards of M109s actually pretty decent artillery. Tank tab, you obviously have the biggest boy of NATO, the M1A1HA, with its 21 damage, the best penetration in the game, 20 frontal armor, second best armor. So a really good beefy boy. We want to upvet it so that it can take a bit more stress damage and recover stress damage faster. Really important here, otherwise they become too inefficient too quickly for their price. But with Chaparrals and F-15s you can currently protect them pretty decently against air. Artillery doesn't murder them outright anymore, so heavy tanks absolutely can work. Currently having 6 of them here, you could potentially argue that you maybe only want to have 4 and go like this. Yeah, I go on the safe side here right now with 6 of them. 8 M1A1s, and then the M1A1 CP, and then some cheap ITOs. That's why I have the ITO here. Then that's why we have the TOTU here. You could maybe put it the other way around, but I like this as the ITO vehicle. Potentially also a spot that you can move depending on decks you fight against if you are in the tournament, versus the M728 Kev or yeah, the TOTU vehicle, or maybe just another card of M1A1s. In the recon tab, you get pretty decent recon infantry. You get the really cheap scouts, which only cost you 30 points. Issue of the scout is it doesn't have any anti-tank, and it doesn't have any fighter power, but that's fine. This guy is just here for scouting, and that's what it will do for you. The LRS, on the other hand, is pretty much all around good. It is a special force, it can fight well with its called commando. The law is its weakness. AT capability is mediocre, but it has also the ground search radar, which is the reason why we take both cards of the LRS here, because that gives you exceptional optics on these infantries, and that means that you can get them in really great spots and see a hell of a lot. With their exceptional stealth and when not moving, exceptional optics. These guys are absolutely important in this deck to get the information and intel you need to keep your tanks alive, to keep your tanks pushing. The Kiowa, another exceptional optics recon. The only issue here is that with the latest buff to AA ranges, keeping this thing alive is pretty tough, as it only has 4 hit points, so it dies to a sneeze. What you could potentially argue for is using ACAFs here on your scouts. I'm not the biggest fan of the ACAF anymore. Like, I still see a lot of people using it. And for 35 points, I mean, it still has 17 damage on it, but the reduction in accuracy and the reduction in aim time on the recoilless rifle, I don't know. I don't feel like it is that fantastic, but it costs you speed and all of that, so I'd rather don't take it anymore. I still can't see why people take it. So yeah, if you want to have some extra fighting vehicle, the ACAF still is there for you. AA, Stingers, Chaparrals, and Pivots, all decent at the moment for their price. Stingers have fantastic ranges and 5 damage. Accuracy is decent. Chaparral, really good range for a non-radar weapon system at the moment, even against aircraft. So yeah, can kill anything everywhere. Only issue is that it only has 4 missiles, and that is the problem there. So you always want to have them in batteries of 2s, and for that it might be a bit expensive. Pivot, really cheap, can stun helicopters, can kill unarmored helicopters and unarmored planes, relatively low-flying planes especially, relatively quickly. So nice support vehicle. It lacks stopping power on its own though, so you often want to combine it with the other two. But it's a cheap 55-point unit, and it can protect your infantry from enemy helicopters by stunning them down. But yeah, it's a decent vehicle for its price, but it is not amazing in killing anything. But it's so cheap that it doesn't need to do that. And then we come to the helicopters, where you get a good mix of good stuff. You get rocket Apaches, which obviously have a lot of killing power in the rocket pods, and the gun is absolutely fantastic. With the range increase of AA, you have to be a bit careful, but these things still absolutely can murder any infantry unit or any soft target unit they come across. And then the other Apache, with its Hellfire and its great range on the Hellfire, can still stop tanks and any armored vehicle from a long range. So fantastic helicopters still. You have to be a bit more careful when it comes to ground-based stuff. At least they survive against airplanes a bit better than before. But against ground-based stuff, you still have to be quite careful. But if you micro them, and if you use especially the change altitude efficiently and keep them flying low when you don't actively use them, then they still will pay off for you. And then in the air, you also have still good stuff. You have the F-15C, which is still the best air superiority fighter in the game. And then you have the A-10s, which also suffered through the increase of air range. And once Seed is buffed, you might want to change out one of these for Seed. Currently, the Wild Weasel is just too low range in comparison to the ground-based AA that shoots back at it, which is a bit of a shame. Especially as it also doesn't have fantastic ECM. 40 is not bad, but it's not fantastic. So, yeah, the Wild Weasel currently not quite as functional as I wish it would be. And that's why it's just use 2 A-10s. You have to be careful when you use them, but they still... The GAU 8 is still a fantastic gun. The 65D is decent in its accuracy and good in its damage output, and the AM9M still allows it to win any duel with an enemy plane coming directly for it, plus helping out with dealing with helicopters. So still a great all-rounder plane. Like, can deal with enemy helicopters, can deal with enemy infantry with its gun, can deal with enemy tanks with its ATGMs. So still the perfect all-rounder, just a bit slow. But the rest of the planes currently doesn't perform better, so that's why I would just go with 2 of these. Once HE bombers are buffed again, the F4E is a nice, cheap payload drop, and the F111 is a usually great carpet bomber, but at the moment the 227 kilogram bomb is really underperforming, so I would recommend against using this. And yeah, this is the deck. A pretty good combination of armor and really good recon. Really good recon. The helicopters, great support tools. You want to be really careful in using them aggressively at the moment, but they still are pretty good at the defense and at the flanking. Unless the enemy has some really strong anti-helicopter weapons out there. Sometimes they feel rather useless at the moment, but most of the time they still can put up their weight. The infantry, not as crazy as it once was, as the M67 and the Engineer Slash have been nerfed, but it still can stand its ground, and the Bradley is a really helpful support weapon, as the biggest weakness of this deck is that your tanks are all expensive. You don't have any cheap tanks, so the Bradleys, the Toes, and the infantry have to hold the ground until you can get enough of these online, but once you get enough of these online, the enemy will have a really, really tough time stopping you. Artillery, fine, not a great tap, not a bad tap, and yeah, this is basically it. So yeah, you want to play around your heavy tanks, getting them out slowly, and then slowly but surely pushing off your enemy from the battlefield. And before that, play with your light mechanized forces to stop the enemy. Play defensively with the Bradley. It's, as I said, not a great offensive weapon, but following your heavier tanks up with the Bradley is great. Like, their toe still deals so much damage to any armor that comes up, so if they are not prioritized by the enemy anti-tank weapons, they will be really helpful there in the support as well. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this deck deep dive. If you did, leave a like down below and let me know what you would do different in your 30US, and which deck you would want to see next. And I hope to see you next time. Bye bye, and have a great day.